Nice one. Okay. Have you got any kind of like interesting projects that you're allowed to talk about on that coming up, or are they all hush at the moment?
Yep.
Yeah, yep. I'll take that as the latter.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
exciting.
It's
Yeah,
cool. Yeah. There's always stuff going on.
yeah. And what in terms of like obviously you say you're kind of taking some time off. What at the moment? What is a day in the life like for you? Kind of on a more day off sort of day off kind of day.
Um, so even when I say it's day off, I'm still probably spending a lot of my time on the phone talking with people. So I'm still maintaining relationships. It just won't be to like acquire work. It will just be staying relevant, I suppose.
Yeah.
So like more often than not, any day, irrespective of whether it's time off or not, it just it's I'm up at 6 every day, and then it's going to the gym, and then my day starts properly around like 10 or 11 after that.
Nice one. And when you say kind of maintaining relationships, do you mean like so for example, obviously you'll have clients that you've worked with over several releases or whatever. How do you find that balance between like keeping a relationship and also the business side of things? Is that ever kind of tricky given the sort of line of work that you're in?
I think it's tricky if you don't know how to be a human being. Or
in other words, it can be really tricky.
Right. But I think being self-employed, you learn fairly quickly what's acceptable and what's not, or what's too intense in either direction. And if you don't learn those things, then you don't tend to have sustained success. So I think like everyone, it was difficult at the beginning because I wanted connections to be there, but they also then have to respect you in a business sense. And then over time, the respect is almost completely guaranteed because of your accolades, and then you have to show them that you're a human. So yeah, it swaps roles over time.
It's a weird dynamic with the sort of the producer. I hate saying client because it kind of makes it feel a little bit impersonal, but that kind of producer musician dynamic, because there's always that sort of they're paying for my time, but you want to be their friend, and you want to, because that's how you get the most out of the performance, right? And out of the person, and how you have the best experience of it. Is that been something you've had to develop over the years, or did that come quite naturally? Or
which part? Sorry.
The sort of the relationship building, being able to build that relationship with the musicians that you're working with. Is that something that came quite naturally to you? Are you sort of
you're always working on it, because otherwise you're kind of insinuating that once you've learned one personality, you've got a handle on all of the personalities that you could meet, and that's not really how it works. And the relationships that you're able to establish change based upon your own merit or their merit, and where they find themselves to be in their career. So it's not really like a static picture. You're always adapting or readapting or relearning things that are appropriate for some situations, but not for others. So it's not a one and done type thing. It's just a constant.
Yeah. So what would be? How do you tend to approach it? For example, if I turned up day one, we never met before, we spoken, but we never met. If I turned up, how do you go about that initial kind of meeting? How do you is there things? Because I remember like the first time when we went to the studio, Tom, who's produced our music to this point, I think the first thing he said, there's 2 rules in the studio, and it's like no Metallica and no farting in the control room. And I think that's the first thing he said, which seemed fair and could certainly put us at ease. Do you have like a way of getting sort of helping people kind of relax into that environment?
Yeah, I mean, I have to now, because I'm starting to experience there being people that think that I'm famous, and I don't think that I'm famous. So I joke about it because I think it's funny, but it's not something that I seriously go like that I take myself seriously with. But more often than not, at the moment, I'm not really working with people in person, so it's not really something I have to practice or worry about at the moment, because I don't know if you've noticed, we've been indoors for 2 years and no one's allowed over, and that means no recording. So before that period of time, we'd have basically, we would just have a throwaway day. We wouldn't even record on the first day.
It's great.
And that would be intentionally because I don't tell people that that's what's happening either.
Mm.
They turn up and they're scared, and I go, it doesn't matter, we're not doing anything today. Why? It's like, because you're nervous and I don't know who the fuck you are, and I can't be myself with someone that is constantly shitting themselves. So, you know,
do you want to film this again tomorrow then? Just see how it goes.
It'll be worse. I'll be like in my dressing gown. So yeah, so I'll take them through like the things that I expect of them over the next couple of days, and the things that I need from them, and the things that I need from them in order to ensure that what we're going to try and translate is going to be effective. Most people are very stereotypically British, which means that they don't talk or share their feelings. Mm-hmm. And that's the most counterproductive like anything to music, because in order for something to work, you need to be able to emote, and if you can't share your emotions, then you're not a musician. You're just, it's not really anything. Yeah. So that whole process is to get people comfortable with the fact that I'm encouraging them to share. I'm encouraging them to tell me that I'm wrong, and I then also let them know that I'm also going to be doing the same thing, but it's not personal. So it's, that first day exists in order to set a precedent for, everything goes. Some stuff goes less than other things. There's a tolerance, but then it's also an expectation of, you have to be an adult, and if you're not an adult, you're not allowed in the room. It's kind of like that sort of stuff. Yeah,
cool. Well, yeah, you got to have that. I know it can be a stressful time being in the studio sometimes, so you got to have those boundaries as well. But yeah, it sounds. What was I gonna? There are about 3 different things I was going to pick up on that, and I think all of them overlapped. And then I got around to the beginning. I go, what was I even going to pick up on all of those things? One thing you said earlier that I found interesting, and that I kind of spotted from your Instagram is, I've seen you share a lot of stuff about like the kind of the self-improvement and the sort of self-betterment, which I think is really interesting, and it's really positive, because when, if I'm scrolling through Instagram stories and I see a load of crap and then I see something quite positive, it actually is, it's nice to see. But do you think there's more we could maybe be doing? I'm guessing the answer to this is going to be yes, but
probably.
I could just stop there, couldn't I, really? But maybe, let's say, particularly in the music industry, is there more? Again, probably a yes, but maybe what more is a better question. Could we, when I say we, I mean everyone, not just the folks at the top. I mean, what more could maybe musicians, the music industry, be doing to kind of work on that side of things?
Well, I think like the easiest way is to just draw a parallel. We already know that we are responsive and respond very quickly to what we put in our bodies when we eat and when we drink. And we are very aware of those responses when we eat something that does agree with us and something that doesn't agree with us. And we know how we feel when we exercise and when we don't exercise. And I think the thing that's become more pertinent now is that slowly people are starting to accept that our bodies and the way that we think are quite closely related. And if anything, being able to encourage ourselves to mindfully check in with ourselves and acknowledge things, irrespective of whether it's good or bad, that what we experience and what we feel is allowed to be that way, irrespective of what it is. And we're also allowed to live with it as it is, or we're also allowed to decide that we don't want to live with it. The same way that if we get unwell, we're allowed to decide to go and get help for it.
No, you should.
You should. And it's the same with your how you feel internally. I don't want to call it mental health, because I think now that phrase has got like some twisted connotations with it, as if it's like it's like it's debilitating, like it's negative from the off. It's just checking in with yourself, and it's being mindful that you have more than just your body to deal with, and you are the sum total of everything that you are. So the reason why I share stuff is because I think for women it's a lot easier, because they accept that they are allowed to have emotions. And I think actually as men in general in music, emoting and being emotional and having feelings has been stuff that and things that since we were children told not to do. And there's quite a large taboo around it because being seen as a bloke or masculine is a stiff upper lip, being capable, not talking about things and just getting it done, which is incredibly dangerous and destructive, and it's blocking. So this is a very long answer to your question, but the reason why I share it is because if I'm in the position that I'm in and people think that I'm famous or whatever, or better known, and I'm doing that and I'm prepared to be seen in a way where people go, okay, that's challenging, don't understand, but George is doing it, maybe I can allow myself to look at this. If that happens once, then it works, and then that's enough. Yeah. And the things that I share tend to be the things that are less about, because psychology goes across everything. I try to share the things that are immediately relatable so people can have that immediate connection of, oh, that's what that means.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I have a reason for why I over explain when no one's asked anything. I have a reason for why I feel sometimes like I'm completely absent from a conversation, or why these things happen. There is a reason, there is an answer, and it's not completely my fault, but it is completely within my ability to attend to.
Yeah. That's wow, this first day at the studio is really is really doing me wonders, I have to say. No, I had two things actually to pick up on that. I remember one getting rather kind of sad really, but when the sort of came into news about Chester Bennington, I remember the thing that kind of struck me the most, I didn't figure out so much at the time. It actually took me a while to figure out, because I was like, I wasn't like a lifelong Linkin Park fan, but I did love the music, I still do. But it never quite. I found it really upsetting. But I was like, well, this guy's not like a hero. He's not like a hero of mine. He's someone I really admire, but he wasn't like a sort of a childhood hero kind of thing. But I was like, so why am I really upset by this? Because it's like, and it was relatable, because it's like, well, I'm trying to become a musician. I want to do that. And I think what it was that when you look at his life from the outside in, you think, especially from my perspective, I want to be a metal musician. I'm looking at him like he's kind of got everything in theory that I want to have, and then his life still went that down that route. And I think it was a bit of a step back. So it's like, wow, because you look at that life, you think that's everything, that's what I'm going for. He's headlining massive shows, he's loved by millions, and I think that was quite I don't know, I found that personally quite a bit of a, I don't want to say revelation, that's not quite the word, but a sort of realization of, wow, like it's it affects everyone, and the other thing you were saying, going back even to the first kind of thing you said about, we always talk about so many people have personal trainers, and it's seen as normal to have a personal trainer, for example. But if it comes to having, say, like a therapist or something, that's far more, it's almost like that's seen as if you really need help, whereas personal trainers are just seen as like, oh, well, you do that to keep fit, right? And I think we should go the way of more of the way of seeing a therapist, for example, as like a personal trainer. And I think in the music industry, it seems so sort of, it seems like mental health issues are really big. It seems like they're quite prevalent in the music industry. It might just seem that way because I'm sort of in it, but I don't know what your take is on that. So I don't know if you expected to get this deep at sort of 2:20 on a Tuesday.
This is honestly my preference. I really hate small talk, and I think the more that you get to talk about this stuff, the more that I think you get to talk without like any sort of filter or buffering or anything like that, you get it's beneficial for yourself, not just like the person that you're speaking with. So I'm talking with you at the moment, but I think it's healthy for you as well, because you're reaffirming the things that you're reaffirming the things that you believe in and you find comfortable, and you're finding an easier way of saying it, and you're getting closer to the point over time. And for me, I find it quite calming. So my consideration is that even outside of music, just in general, Oh, that was me. Um,
So
Everyone has something, full stop. And I think the thing that so I'm gonna ask you, right?
okay, go ahead.
All right. There will have been a point in your life where you had no idea as to whether you were good looking, thin, fat, short, or tall, and you didn't care.
I was probably pretty young.
Right. But that is how you're supposed to feel all the time.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to be aware of whether what you look like is valued or not. That's just your physical presentation of who you are internally, right? You didn't get to choose what you look like, but you get to choose who you are, and you get to work on that. And you can work on what you look like a bit with the gym, and there are some people that choose to go down the cosmetic route, which is also completely fine. But my point being is that I had a really strong connection of dislike to myself for about 5 or 6 years as a result of social media showing me, and I didn't even realize this was happening. It was showing me pictures of what other people looked like without any sort of connection to what their lifestyle was like. And that slowly built up this sort of internal image of, I'm expected to be like this, irrespective of what world I live in. That doesn't exist anymore. But it took me 6 years to realize that that was what was happening. And I was constantly finding things that I disliked about myself. And it's this, and the reason why why I talk about it is because I didn't make a choice to have my life infiltrated with that media or that message, but that's what was happening through YouTube, through Instagram, through Facebook. And if that happened with me, with just my body image, with just how I saw myself, because I'm not a particularly tall person, I'm 5'6", and now I'm being told, like, on social media, that that's not acceptable. I can't do fuck all about it.
No.
But that I'm being told that I'm valued less and less attractive as a result of this. If that managed to get into my life, full stop, without my permission, everyone is going to have multiples of these things that they're being shown, where other people are just living the best life or doing it for myself, or this like quasi pseudo like positive affirmation social media posting, which is just turds. And
It's a whole other rabbit hole.
Yeah, I'm not surprised, because the likelihood is the things that people get ailed with, they're not even aware of either, and it's just going to be environmental to them. So, yeah, that's
I really appreciate your way of talking about these things. I think it's important. Like you said, I and sort of without distracting too much, this is what I want to talk about as much as, because I think I could ask you, and I would like, there are a couple of more musical things I would like to ask you.
That's fine.
But but I'm saying I think it's really important to talk about this stuff, and I think I could ask you any day of the week about how do you get your snare tone, so I think this stuff is so was it like, and this, if this ever steps over the personal line, just say we won't talk about
there's nothing that you can ask that I won't answer.
Okay, brilliant. Because I was just going to say, you said sort of 5 or 6 years that you kind of, was there like a moment where you're like, oh, something's gone wrong here, or and then I need to I've clocked this and I need to work on this, or was it over time you started to realize these things were becoming an issue?
Well, the 6-year period only ended recently. It's not 6 years ago was when I dealt with it. It's the last 6 years.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So it's been fairly recent. And how did it end? It's what happened was 2 years ago. It might be 3 now, because I don't actually have a very good concept of time anymore. I did what was effectively a bodybuilding style cut, weight loss, and I dropped 16 kilos in about 5 months or so. And I looked, at the end of it, I looked ridiculous. Like I looked exactly like you'd expect someone to look that's been working out for as long as I have and drops that amount of body fat. And I couldn't have been more depressed. I didn't get to enjoy it. I hated myself. I hated how I looked still, after I did the one thing that I thought that would help. and it took me to find a new trainer, a new coach. And I went, do you know what? I took a year out actually from training properly after that, because I didn't know what to do. I was distraught. And then I met a new trainer who's actually someone that I've known for maybe over 10 years on and off, like through other social circles. And I went to him and I talked to him through my journey, basically. And he went, I had the same one just 2 years ago. So he'd gone through the same thing 2 years before he got his qualification. And I went, I really want to still work out, but I hate doing it. It's not fun. I don't like it. I'm not friends with it anymore. And I miss that first stage of going to the gym and being like, I wonder what this is going to be like now. And he said, well, I can train you if you want. I said, fine. He goes, what do you want to achieve? And I said, I just want to be happy. I just want to enjoy it. And we've been working now for maybe 14 months. And it's working because I didn't give him a specific goal. I just said, I just want to enjoy it. That's it. Because I did all the things, like I went fully down the rabbit hole. I did all the things that Instagram told me that I needed to do. And it doesn't work. It didn't work. And the whole reason why it doesn't work is because the people that live those lifestyles do not do anything else.
Well, I was going to say the ultimate irony is all the people posting on Instagram telling you that it works. If they need to tell you that it works, there's a very good chance maybe it's not working for them as well. So
sure.
But no, I mean, I had a similar. It's similar kind of thing where there's always that. Not grass is always green. I mean, that's a very typical thing, and that happens all the time. But I remember as I was finishing up for school, I did all my A levels, and I was kind of getting really fed up of just being like, exams, and busy life, busy, but like no, I'm not out of choice. It was busy because like I got to do it. And then I thought, well, I'll get to uni, and that'll be great. That'll be like what I want. That will be like once I've got that, and like you were saying about once I've achieved this like weight loss goal, that'll be it, and I'll get to enjoy it. So I was doing all these exams, like, okay, that's fine. I'll get these done and I'll enjoy it. And I got to uni, and this was I was getting more and more into music and less into business management, which is what I kind of started doing at uni. And it was when I remember I didn't get on so well with my flatmates when I joined, which sounds like, it doesn't sound like a small thing, but it doesn't sound like the end of the world, but it was that little thing, because that uni bubble just burst quite quickly. I was like, oh, this isn't
right.
I'm not enjoying this. And then there was that sudden kind of, it's a very different kind of, story, but that's how I ended up then going and doing music, because I was like, I'm pursuing something that isn't really true to what I think I want to do as a person, that sort of how I want to steer my life. And sometimes you need to have that moment, otherwise if you just sort of you get a bit close to that moment but it doesn't happen, you could always just be pursuing a lifestyle you don't really want.
I mean, like discomfort on any level is discomfort, so it doesn't it doesn't matter if it relates or not to what I just talked about. If you relate to it, then you relate. It's understood.
Yeah. No, I think it's I think it's astounding how relatable a lot of experiences are, however different they might be. You can like I was saying about that Chester Bennington kind of story, it's everyone will relate to that differently, even though we all have I feel like I'm going to start waffling very soon.
Well, you're in charge of the edit, so you're fine.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, as unedited as possible is nice, and that's not because I'm lazy, just because I like to keep it,
Okay, so I'll just start saying cancelable stuff, and then you're going to have to edit it.
Okay, well then you're going to give me a weekend of take your pick. Yeah, as long as you don't fire it in between, like if you can put it in a nicely cut spot where we can just have a quick break, and I can just go like, oh, that minute, that was terrible. Let's just get rid of that.
No. Yeah, it's just going to be mid-sentence.
Yeah, just the odd. Oh no, yeah, it's Let's not even go there, because never mind. Cool. Total change of subject, because why not? Have you heard the new Chilli Peppers song?
No.
Okay, fair enough. Thought I'd ask just on the off chance. I literally listened to it earlier today, and I thought, I wonder if because I know it's perhaps a bit different to certainly what I've heard of what you produce, but obviously. I'm a metalhead, but still listen to a bit of Chili Peppers. Are you a Chili Peppers fan at all? Or?
Yeah, when I was growing up.
Nice.
Yeah.
No, I've always got a bit of affinity for them. I think it's sometimes you have those periods of your life that you attach with a certain piece of music, and that's always been them for me. So, well, I was going to see what you thought of it, but that's fine. It's
No, I have not. I don't tend to listen to music.
okay. No, I funnily enough, I'm actually somewhat similar. I don't know if you look at, at the end of the year when everyone posts their Spotify, how long I've been listening to music for. Mine is, considering that I teach guitar full time and do a band and all this other stuff, the amount of music I listen to is probably well under half what most of my mates were posting. It's like, do you find it kind of somewhat tiring if you're listening to music, then you're producing music, and then you're in the music industry? Can it sometimes you just want to detach from that and, like you said, go and exercise maybe? Or
well, you wouldn't believe how difficult it is to listen to music when people want to talk to you all the time. So
okay.
And then in the moments when you're being left alone and you get to mix, you're listening to music, and then kind of like the last thing that I want to do after phone calls and mixing is listen to music. Honestly, I do get moments where I become like, I'll hear something new and I'll become obsessed with it, and then that will be the thing that I start and finish the day with. But it won't be like loads. It will be like choice things that have cropped up, and I'll be like, I'll rinse it, and then I'll get over it, and then I'll wait for the next one to turn up.
Does that steer its way into your production process? Those little moments, sort of musical moments that you hear and you think that's brilliant, and you absolutely rinse it. Do you find yourself tweaking something, going, that's because I heard that yesterday, or is it not quite so immediate?
I would like to say yeah, but the problem is that the things that I listen to and rinse, the people that I work with do not like. So
don't let that in.
So the things that the collaborations and the ideas that I want to combine, I can't put into other people's music, because I think they would find they might go, oh yeah, that sounds like a great idea on the surface, but if I did it, I think it would be too challenging for them, because it would be so far away from what they are used to hearing that it wouldn't fly.
Yeah, is that, how do you find that balance of like, because I know it will vary from person to person and producer to producer. How do you find that balance of like sort of imposing your own ideas that you think will make the song or the album or whatever better, versus being true to what they want to deliver in the music? How do you balance that kind of dynamic?
You don't have to. If you're a good producer, you wait till you're asked.
Okay, nice.
Like the point of you doing your job is not to self-impose what you like on someone else. The point of your job is to accurately and effectively translate their intent. That's it.
So what if, for example, do you ever, I phrase this kind of as carefully as I can, because I wouldn't want it to make it sound like you're sort of outing bands as making mistakes or not liking something they brought in. But do you ever hear something where you hear a chord, maybe there's a chord in like a chorus, and you just think that's not working? Is it often that you would say, maybe we should change that? Or do you kind of, do you sort of, I don't want to say grin and bear it, that sounds like you're really just putting up with the music, but if you hear something you don't like, do you still work with that, or do you sort of go, let's rethink this idea?
I'm trying to think of the last time that actually happened, because I think what people think producers do versus what actually ends up happening in the studio is quite different. I think I would say that if there is a band that I'm developing where I've been hired to play that role, then I'm just doing it anyway. It's not, we've agreed beforehand that I'm allowed to have access to that. But if that's not been asked of me, I'm not going to start doing it.
Yeah, nice. I mean, like for example, when we first went to the studio, it was very much a case of like, we brought one song in, and it was a case of all the ingredients were there. Like we didn't so much. There's one part that did just get cut, and looking back on that, I totally see why. But I think that I'm forever grateful for Tom, the producer, for his work when we went in there, because I think he understood that we were young, and we had these good ideas, and that I think he recognized. But then he was really good at just going, let's just tweak this part, and it worked really nicely. And he helped us out with lyrics and stuff. And I think there was perhaps that almost unspoken agreement that
Yeah,
he
I
was
think
helping
that's,
to develop us in
but
that way.
that's a bit of a different situation to the ones that I find myself in, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you certainly me 3 years ago, comparatively to some of the bands that you've worked with, I would imagine perhaps have sort of collectively got their shit together a little more.
You'd hope.
You never know how much shit I had together 3 years ago. Not a lot, but you know.
No.
So I mean, this is going to be the question that I'm sure everyone asks. So I'm just going to let you answer this in the easiest way possible.
Okay.
I'll just sort of say something along the lines of, how would you describe, or don't even describe it at all, the experience of the whole Sleep Token working with them?
Can't.
That's a good one-word answer.
Yep.
I thought I'd just ask that once. See what we say, leave it at that, and that is absolutely fine.
Cool. Next
question. Okay. Well, see, now I was gonna, because I did have some stuff about like general production ideas.
Sure.
So that's bookmarked in a way,
Sure.
relating to every other band that you've ever come across. This sort of, like I said, getting into perhaps some of the more musical side of things. I noticed a lot of the music that you work with is perhaps more, I don't know how you would describe it, but maybe alternative metal in some ways. That might be a bit of a mischaracterization, but it's certainly the more metal bands that you've worked with that I've listened to. I don't want to say it's not generic, because that implies that there are a lot of generic bands out there. I guess there are certainly some, but some of the sound, like the soundscapes and the kind of the tones you get out of things, and I think just generally the mood of these songs is quite, I would describe it as more alternative personally.
Okay.
Is that something, I guess I've almost answered my own question, because I was going to say, is that something you aim for? But I guess you said you like to reflect what is being brought into you. So is that just the nature of the bands that happen to have come to you, or do you lean towards that sort of type of music? That was a very poorly phrased question. Yeah. I'm just hoping you unpacked all of that.
No, I know what you're asking. I don't like normal music.
Okay.
And
I think you get fed up on my band.
Well, I don't know. I haven't heard it, but I can let you know.
Yeah, I'll send over. You can have a listen.
Sure. I find that if you do the same thing that you're used to hearing over and over again, is kind of like the equivalent of going out to a restaurant and ordering food that you can make at home.
You don't know what I can make at home.
It doesn't matter. If you make a tomato sauce pasta and then you go to a restaurant and then you pay 20 quid for the same thing, it might be slightly better, but you're not changing your experience. It's still a slightly better version or a much better version of the thing that you approximate at home. There's not a lot of point. For me, my general curiosity is always, and whether I'm successful with it or not is down to the end user, is to find stuff and hear things that I've not heard before. And that amalgamates in any number of ways, and it can be any shape, and it can either be good or bad, but that's my general aim for what I want to achieve, full stop, because I don't want to get bored with music. And some people are really happy picking a thing to be good at and just refining that and having one world that they build. I would like to try and build a world per band for them to exist in. And then hopefully, if that's successful, over time, evolve that environment with them over numbers of records.
Wow, yeah, this is you've got a very this is going to sound so sort of coming from, I was just saying, I find it very impressive the way you look at these sort of, I try not to be sort of flattering in these podcasts, because it's like, it sounds like I'm kind of, there's plenty of interviews where the person's awkwardly sat next to them, they'll be going, Grammy nominated, this, that, and the other, and you're just like, can you just talk to them?
Yeah.
But no, I think that's really cool, the way you've, I like the way you sort of phrased it, having a different world for each band to exist in. What if someone goes along and goes, can I have a bit of that world, please? And
doesn't happen.
No,
because it's like going, you can ask for it, but your version, like, so this is how it works. How that person would look at something that I've already made may actually not be how I saw what I was making with that band. So they can ask for it, but they're not asking for what I made for that band. They're asking for their interpretation of it and how they relate to it. So I can say, yeah, but they're still not really getting that thing. They're getting their color of it.
Yeah, that's. I think between this and the kind of the day off in the studio, I feel like I'm just gonna sort of, if I turned up to your studio, I'd sort of leave about a week later, like, oh, what just happened, and then suddenly
Yeah,
have some wicked music at the end of it, like.
that's the
So
hope.
yeah, no, it sounds no, I think it sounds wicked. I saw you shared, correct me if I'm wrong, I saw you shared something on your Instagram not so long ago. Do you kind of work on writing stuff yourself?
Yeah, at the moment, yeah.
Nice. And is that something you want to delve into, or is that a bit like,
Yeah.
okay,
The intent is to the idea is to do everything that I'm not allowed to do and
nice?
everything that I don't see other people do in terms of their release strategy, because they get restricted by time or label expectations or some kind of other restriction. But I kind of realized that I'm in a quite a privileged situation because I can make the records that I make, and I've made friends, and I can kind of ask who I need to be involved, and it doesn't really cost them much in terms of effort because I can predetermine everything. I can just go, can I have your interpretation of this part, please? And yeah, the idea is to do an album and then find the most like satisfying way of releasing it rather than just like dropping an album. It might just be it might be drip feeding songs but at uneven intervals, so it's not like once a month. It might be once every however many days, but the number of days changes so people aren't aware.
Get some Fibonacci sequence in there. Go tool on it.
Something. And but the idea is so that the level of interaction stays sustained at a certain level based upon anticipation and restriction, which labels won't do really, because they have to be able to put out PR and they have to be able to plan these things. But I don't have to care about that because I could just do it. So that's
Yeah,
the hope.
that sounds awesome. And is that something? Is that like a near future, or is that something that's you think could take some time to really get ready?
Mm. Um, well, I can, if I've written for other people, I can write an album in 2 weeks. But for what I'm wanting to do, I don't know because I've not done it before. Like there's things where I can't do them because it involves genres that I don't know.
Okay, so are you looking to delve into it's, and is this it? It sounds very much like I feel like I have to keep saying forgive me if I'm wrong
Okay.
because I'm trying to sort of read into how you look at these. It sounds like you like a challenge out of these things, you know. It sounds like you kind of sort of, when you talk about maybe other genres or finding new ways of putting this stuff out, or like is there a way I can release this, or it sounds like you're kind of trying to combine some quite tricky ideas. Is that something inherent in how you go about these, or go about life, I guess?
I'm not trying to make life complicated. I'm trying to keep things interesting, because it's really easy to just make something and then be like, oh, I would like to use this default preset way of releasing stuff and approaching an album, and you can do that and you will get a lukewarm 5 out of 10 probably. And that's really easy to guarantee because a lot of these release strategies are based upon money and guaranteed success. So they are designed to promise the person that's paying for them and to a certain net result. Whereas what I'm wanting to do is I don't really care about the net result. I do care, but I think that if I take the risk, it's easier for me to take the risk than a band, for me to ask a band to do it. So then if I do it, then maybe it means that other people will be a bit more brave.
That's a really good way to look at it. Is it would the intention be to take that on the road? or would it be just something maybe that you would release? I'm guessing you, with your schedule, it would perhaps be
I
tricky, but
I don't know if what I will write will be performable.
is in too challenging to deliver live, or literally it would be tricky to play?
No,
As in,
it'll be playable because I'll be able to record it, but there are, like, it would need, like, yeah, it would need a lot, like, just in terms of, it's probably possible, but I don't think I'm able to imagine how it would work, because I've never done anything like to that scale. But it's not easy to do at like a club level. It would have to be like larger stages with production, and like one song flips between metal and drum and bass is the only way that I can explain it. And so
nice.
I don't know how to do that live.
I'll be perfectly honest, neither do I.
Right.
Doesn't mean you can't. I'm not.
No, and with the intent of it not being on a backing track, right? So
Okay, yeah.
yeah,
There's a lot of people involved, I would imagine.
Mm-hmm. And so then if that happens, right, and we're talking about logistics here, if you've only got one song that does that, you then need to find a job for those additional people to do for the rest of the set. Otherwise, they're just stood there.
I'll be your one-song guitarist. I don't mind.
One-song guitarist.
Yeah.
Guitar's not the thing that I have an issue with. It's the fact of like going between like just lo-fi something and then on one song and then drum and bass on another, and then being all over the place. Like there's the drum kit changes on one song. The drum kit changes tuning 3 times.
Wow. Okay. And is that this would sound like such a sort of obnoxious question. If hopefully you can tell, maybe I do know a little bit about it, but
okay,
how much can you tell the difference in the tuning in the drum kit between those 3 different? You know, I'm not doing that. Can you really tell the difference? I'm just saying how in what when you say tuned, is that quite severely differently or just subtle?
It doesn't matter because it's what I want to do.
Yeah. So that's about the best answer you could give for most of this, to be fair.
Because the point is like, it's a lot easier to convey certain types of energy with certain tunings with drums. Like you can't have fast, low tuned stuff because otherwise it just sounds like a mess. And then having a melodically tuned drum kit sound big and sustainy and all that sort of stuff is also not possible. It like with effects, but if you want to avoid effects, then it's not easy. So there are it's difficult.
Like well, the thing is, if you're saying that, and my knowledge of any of that business is limited. I pick up the guitar and I can record myself, and with the help of the sort of the easy to use production, plug in and go, I can do about that. But ask me about drums. I'm the typical guitarist that will write a drum part, look at my drummer, and just kind of go, "Can you?"
Right.
And he'll go, "No, I can't because I don't have 8 hands."
Yeah.
So that's kind of. But yeah, in terms of writing, do you what's the process typically? Is there a typical process, or do you pick up a guitar? Do you have a piano? Do you just have an idea in mind and find what instrument that might suit? Or
more often than not, at the moment, it's just about using stuff that I don't use.
Okay.
And then seeing if that lands, and then if it lands, then typically if one thing happens, I can hear everything else around it, and then I just build that. And then the objective after that point in time is to understand what have I just made, what does that do within a song, and then from this point, how do I build out a whole song and look at the whole structure and the movement of the energy within that song, and then do I like it? Because I don't decide whether I like it whilst I'm doing it. I decide after I've done it.
That's a really difficult thing to do, actually, is that not tell it, because I know I've come up with ideas where I've gone, it's not quite there, and then I leave it a day and then I come back and that's it, and it stays, because it was just like I didn't give it that chance to, like there was something there. Like if you sit there and you play a riff 100 times and try and figure it out, you're only doing that because you've probably heard something there. You're not just doing it for the sake of it. So I always hate myself a bit when I drop a riff and go, no, well, there was something. I played that 150, 200 times for a reason. I just didn't quite chase it down the route that it needed to go down, which I think, and perhaps, I mean, relating this back to the the more meta kind of grand scheme of things side. I think nowadays with things like attention spans and that being so limited, it's so easy to try and have an idea, and then there's the literal sense where I could literally just be distracted by my phone. And there's also the side of me that hears an idea in my head and then goes, I'm bored of that. And then do you think that's something that's maybe seeping into music? The lack of attention, and I don't mean lack of attention as in diligence. I mean lack of literal paying attention to things. Do you think that's going to affect music, or already is maybe?
I don't know. That's a really hard. I don't think that's a yes or a no thing. I think that's.
I'm going to be honest. I would not know the answer to that question.
Yeah, I think. I mean, it's changed the way that we look at music videos, and actually, it's changed the way that we structure songs now. That has had an impact on that, and it's getting closer to how song structures were towards the 60s and 70s, where songs were a lot shorter, simply because of how TikTok and YouTube work. A lot of song structures are what we call front-loaded. They're front-heavy, because the intention is to get someone beyond that first minute of watching.
Yeah.
And then you can progress the song, but you typically find that the most interesting or obscure thing is happening in the first minute of songs at the moment, and you'll almost always hear the chorus within that first minute too.
Yeah, that's definitely something I've noticed for sure.
Yeah, and so that's happened. I don't really think that's such a big thing. It's just that, music evolves and it changes and it has different shapes, and it's now further away from what prog was than ever, which just means that prog or progressive elements will just come back around at some point in the next 10 years, which is cool, because that'll mean that I end up doing a lot more music, because that's my world. And as for attention spans, no, the likelihood of what will happen is the people that have attention spans will make music, and people that don't won't. That will probably be the most straightforward answer to it. Yeah,
it's not surprisingly straightforward, but it's quite obvious when you think about it, isn't it? But do you think so for example, the way we look at music, say if you were to listen to I don't know, like a classic Led Zeppelin track or something from 50 years ago now, do you think, for example, the jump in production quality, do you think that will be equal 50 years from now? Do you think, for example, the difference you can hear in the clarity of say the drum kit, or just in terms of fidelity basically and quality, can you see that, say that arbitrarily it's tripled in quality, do you think it will triple in quality in the next 50 years? And for the record, I'm just trying to ask you difficult questions because you're giving really good answers to all the easy ones.
Okay. I think that's thinking in the wrong way.
Okay.
Not in the wrong way. Sorry, that's really
that's all right.
It's too black and white.
Yeah.
There is no wrong way to think about this. Hang on, let me move my mic because
I don't know. I'm sure I thought
it's now dropping. Oh my days! Come on. No, see, it's not.
Can we insert the cancelable moment now?
Yeah. Oh my days! Come on, mate. There we go. Right. So. To take that into account, we need to think about, you say, in the next 50 years.
Well, yeah. So you could go as little as 10. You could say, okay, it's got X amount better in 10 years.
In the next 10 years, we'll have the metaverse.
Okay. Well, I suppose the music's all going to be. It's not even going to be audible, is it? It's just going to be.
Well, no, there'll still be speakers in 10 years. It's more like.
Do you think you just see someone's head vibrating and be like, "Blimey, his music's on loud"?
No, because bone conduction is weird and it feels weird, and you can still cause hearing damage, but you're not aware that you're doing it with bone induction.
With what? Sorry,
you do not know about bone induction headphones?
No.
All right, that's something for you to Google later. I'm not going to even bother trying explaining how that works, but it means that you can wear headphones in a swimming pool and listen to
wicked.
Music. Yeah.
Okay. Well, on all the 1 or 2 occasions that I might do that in my life, that sounds incredible.
But it's also like technology that was thought would be good for people that want to cycle and hear music, but also be able to hear traffic at the same time. Anyway, So in the next 10 years, we'll have the metaverse and the internet will update, and the quality of the amount of data we can transfer simultaneously will increase, probably, because we'll end up with probably 6G in 10 years, which will be the 6 gigahertz bandwidth, which means that we'll have data transfer speeds of, I think it's something like 5 gigabytes per second or something like that.
Wow.
The other thing that's happened simultaneously is we've now got spatial audio, otherwise referred to as Dolby Atmos. And the evolution of this into headphones and head tracking could be gimmicky, but there's also a level of dynamic range that is re-enabled because it means that we don't just perceive music as just two signals of audio. I think it's like 11 signals of audio within a within a system, which means that you can have any type of placement for instrument and dynamic. And it means that, and I've experienced it, and listening to music in Dolby Atmos is really, really emotional. It's really.
I was going to totally devalue that by just saying it sounds like the musical equivalent of taking mushrooms or something, but
No,
but it does sound incredible. No, it really does.
It's incredible, but the main restriction at the moment is that people are only looking at it from the state that it's in currently, which is these high-end installations in people's homes or in studios,
cinema, isn't it?
Or cinema. But these installations can cost anywhere between 30 to 100 grand to do, and people are going, well, there's no point in adopting this because no one's going to hear it. But they missed the point that the in-between stage is headphones, because headphones can replicate part of that journey better than you can do in your home, because in order for it to work, you need for all the speakers to be a measured distance apart, the right volume,
wow,
and the room to be treated, and all this stuff. Anyway, if all that works and the amount of data that can be transferred and everyone starts mixing in Dolby Atmos, which is unlikely, but it could happen in 10 years, it would mean that you wouldn't get a tripling of quality, because it's not quality, it's not relative like that. We're already almost at the headroom of what we can record in terms of fidelity from an audio source. What you would get is closer to a personal performance.
So it's not the quality, it's how it's delivered more so.
It's the receiving end, and it won't be this, because at the moment music is the loudest that it's ever been, it's the least dynamic that it's ever been, and people still enjoy it, but you would get the sensation of a live gig while still being able to listen to it is what would happen.
I suppose that in combination with VR, you could basically be in the room, couldn't you?
You could. I mean, I hate that. I hate that idea.
Yeah. Oh no. I mean, I the thing that I find terrifying is everything we've sort of seemed to have developed to this point. If you don't adopt it, you're left behind in some way. You know, like if you don't want to be on social media, well, that's fine. But
right.
Good luck trying to do this, that, and the other.
I mean, but VR won't take over in that way. Augmented reality might, but again, because I had this chat with my dad actually, because we talk about this stuff because that's normal.
Well,
yeah. My dad is now at the age where he's now just skeptical about anything. The only way that VR or AR takes over or works is held back by two technologies which aren't evolving fast enough in order for it to be adopted. One is battery technology, because we don't have batteries that work in the way that they would need to work in order for AR or VR to be sustainable over the duration of a whole day currently, especially in something that is as small as your glasses in wearable technology. And we also don't have data throughput. So we don't have fast enough internet on mobile devices that is sustainable and consistent in order for it to work. And the problem is that each time we improve the data rate, so like 5G, 6G, it increases the amount of power that is needed. So it's almost this perpetual problem. But once that's resolved, mobile phones won't exist anymore. Yeah. Like TVs won't exist anymore. It will become closer to that sort of like Star Trek lifestyle.
Will you be I know you obviously you said you kind of hate the idea of some of this stuff, if I clocked on that right. But will you be are you an early adopter, or are you are you gonna sort of let things happen a bit before you know, because I know that for a fact there'll be some people as soon as you can have your computer in here, it'll be straight in there. Do you think you'd be? This is getting very meta now.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah. If it's practical, then yeah. So like, imagine like the idea, and this is the side that I love when it comes down to education, that I'm all for it. So the idea of being able to just, without using a fucking phone or an iPad, because I actually really don't like having a phone. I really don't like having it, but it's the only way that I can do my job at this moment in time. But the idea of like the AR world that could be delivered, where, for example, I was talking to Dad about this, where you're renovating your home and you want to learn how to do something or wire it up a plug or build a wall, and instead of having to go to YouTube, you are just shown in front of you with what you've got available to you, what you can do and how to put it together. That to me sounds like the best.
But can the guy like swear in front of you and all of that stuff? Because otherwise, I'm not going to believe he's doing it properly.
Why do you think there's a guy?
Well, you want the real experience. You might, you got to have
right. I see. No, I'm talking about the fact that your technology would know and be able to see what you've got to hand, like what materials, and then it would holographically display. You take this piece, you cut it here, you put that there, and step by step being taught how to do something practical in a way that would require either people or money or time or frustration. The same goes for like other practical things like cooking or people that are maybe differently abled, needing a visual way of learning how to do something. That side of things is incredible. Yeah. The virtual conference room, put it in the bin. We all hate Zoom. It's done. Yeah. Like, I'm over it. I would rather go to a coffee shop and talk to people. But for the educational side of things or the practical side of things, I think that for me, I'm really cool. I'm cool with that. Yeah.
I think if it can get us closer to, the real deal without letting the crap get in the way, and hopefully some good music along the way as well. I won't take too much of your time because I appreciate you've I suppose like you said, not hopefully having some hopefully well earned downtime, I guess. But is there any last kind of not any last words? That's terrible.
Any last words? Okay, cool.
Yeah. Well, we can next time we'll find a nice coffee shop and sure. Set the microphones up and see what
easy.
See what everyone else has to say.
Yeah, exactly.
Wicked. Is there anything you kind of want to plug or or?
No, I don't do stuff like that.
Okay, that's cool. Well, check you out. There you go. That should be a given, I guess.
Yeah, sure. If you want, like if you don't want to, I don't.
Well, I'll say it. There you go.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Wicked. Well, thank you for hopping on. It's been really good, actually. It's nice to, like I say, it's nice to talk about things that aren't just, I could ask you, like I said, I could ask you about your snare tone anytime. I didn't know.
No, you didn't.
There you go. There's one last thing. How do you, actually, that was genuinely, that was a question that I was interested in. And again, I hate being too flattering on this thing, but I really like the drum tone that I've heard. Obviously, it varies, like you said, but there's going to be some consistency in how you do these things. And it sounded very, it sounds very kind of, I don't quite know the word. The word that comes to mind is quite true to perhaps to the player. Obviously, I'm not in the room with the player, so maybe it's not true to them at all, and you're doing something really cool. What do you? I suppose without revealing too many of your tricks, what do you kind of have in mind when you're thinking, how do I get these big drum sounds or get the right drum sound for the?
All right. It's not tricks. It's just I think. Again, I think we're used to, or we've got fed for a very, very long time, a false representation of what drums do. Like, they don't sound.
My drummer keeps trying to convince me that it's an instrument.
Wait, on what?
No, I'm just taking the piss out of my drummer.
It's an instrument. Okay.
Oh yeah, no, I just keep trying to.
Right. It's also melodic. So,
yeah.
But if I'm producing the record, it starts at like when we're setting up. And again, it comes back to that we're translating what the band have written, what they intend to do, what their attitude is, what their energy is. And sometimes the band have some ideas that I think step away from that. And then sometimes I have ideas that they think step away from that. And it's usually the combination of those considerations that start building identities, that then all that happens when it comes down to mixing is all that's in my mind is, I know what's here because I was there when I recorded it. How do I accentuate that sound further without detracting from what we started off with? That's it.
So it's quite well. So I suppose that kind of lines up nicely with me saying it's quite a true sound, because that is what you're trying to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Wicked. I think that's a nice place to round that off. It's,
well done. We did it.
Yeah, there you go. That was quite a journey, to be fair. Went all over the place in a good way, I think.
That's how it goes.
Wicked. Cool. Well, I will hopefully at some point, I don't know, I'm sure I'll catch you. The music world is a small world. So hopefully I'll catch you at some point again. Be lovely too.
Sure. Probably will.
Wicked. Cool. Thank you.
Cheers, Joe.